Welcome to the Blueprint Breakers podcast. What is a blueprint breaker? If you live your life outside the typical traditional lifestyle blueprint, you are a blueprint breaker. We are here to start a conversation, to assemble resources, and to build a community. This podcast is for empowered women in midlife and beyond who are preparing for a powerful next era of life. My name is Amy A. Palmer. I am your host and facilitator for our conversations. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show. To stay connected, up to date, and to receive all of our free resources and gifts along the way, join us at community.blueprintbreakers.com. Today's episode is something really special. This is my very first roundtable conversation. I invited three of my recent guests, Tori, Trilby, and Carole, to come back together and talk about something that keeps coming up in my community again and again. And that topic is friendship, specifically midlife friendship. So we talk about why does it feel harder? Why do some friendships fade? Why do we feel lonely even when we're surrounded by people? We talk about how to expand our friendships. We cover a lot in this conversation. And you'll see it's interesting, even though we are calling in from 4 different points around the globe, there's definitely commonalities in our experiences and some nuanced differences. The conversation is very honest. It's vulnerable. And if you've ever wondered, what's wrong with me? Why is this so hard? This is going to resonate with you. So I hope you enjoy the conversation. Hello and welcome. Now, I'm so excited to get started with my very first roundtable session here at Blueprint Breakers. And I'm so excited that we have this group of amazing, accomplished, multifaceted women. We're representing multiple countries around the globe. So it'll be really fun to have this conversation. And the first topic that we decided to tackle and discuss is around friendship, because it's definitely something that a lot of women in midlife and Gen X women have been talking about at length online. As y'all know, I've been deep into threads lately, and the threads conversations happening around friendship, it's a lot, and a strong desire for connection. So I can't wait to hear your insights. Welcome, Tori, Carole, Trilby. I'm so happy to have you here. And so let's start with some context. I want to hear a little bit about your views or how you saw friendship earlier in your lives, as younger adults versus now. And was there a difference? And I kind of want to get a sense of what that looks like.
Well, it was sort of situational. It's a difference in situations. Earlier in life, I was working, first at a bank, but then on tall ships from the 1920s and 30s, and then cruise ships and things. And you're living there, you're working there, you got no choice. And you find your people, and there's the bar there, there's everything. So it is your life. And then now at this point, you have to make it a priority. You have to make an effort. And you don't feel like it necessarily. You just kind of want to, I think we can all relate to just not wanting to put on clothes and makeup and just hibernate a little bit. Then there are those times that you're like, oh, I wish I had a friend to go out to dinner with. I wish I would like people to talk to. I'd like to go have a night, somebody to go to this concert with, whatever. So you can't wait until then. You have to invest. You have to make the effort. As much trouble as it is like dating. It
is.
Exactly. And you try on friends and you try on new people, and sometimes they become friends and sometimes not. Sometimes they're just not your people.
Right. Tori, did you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think friendship, when you make a timeline of life from my youth through my young adulthood and up through middle age, it depended not just on circumstances, but my maturity and my personal attitude because when I was a teenager, I was very popular, kind of embarrassed to say that, but I was also very self-centered, and
We all
people,
were.
yeah, but I just was so self-centered that did not, I was not that outward caring person. It was all me. But people still gravitated, and I was the center of attention. And so I had more friends than I knew what to do with. And I made a shift when I went to college. I realized that, I'm starting new. It's a new place. Nobody knows me here. I can choose who I want to be. And I realized that I was not a good person. That wasn't who I wanted to be. I shifted from me focus to others focus. And I tried to adjust that personality. And my friend group got really small, but they were quality friends instead of that shallow, I'm going to be around the popular girls just so that I can be seen.
Yeah.
And there were people who were around me because they cared about me, and they cared about me because I cared about them. And then I moved again in my young adulthood, and that's when I got to Texas and I met my husband, and my friend group got even smaller, but it got like 6 people, but we would do anything for each other. And it was an incredibly devoted group of people. And when I got married, my daughter was born with a heart defect, and she had open heart surgery when she was 6 days old. And that group of people, and like that inner circle, and we had, kind of an outer circle of people that we knew pretty well, and it was good relationships. We had more people in the waiting room. The doctors and nurses were like, we've never had that many people there. That, when you go to the waiting room, there's usually like a mother or father, maybe a grandparent. It's like 3, maybe 4 people. We had 40 people in the waiting room waiting to see what happened to my daughter. And she was fine. It all worked out. But that's how we moved through our 20s and early 30s. Then we moved again, and my health started to deteriorate. And there was another shift, and those deeper friendships started to fall off because it's exhausting to have a friendship with somebody who is disabled. And I was not capable of making that outward effort. And it's too exhausting when you have physical disabilities to always be the one to initiate.
Right.
And I am now trying to rebuild those friendships because we have had a large span of, not having people over 3 nights a week, not going out and not interacting. And it's been a very like a desert of not interacting. And my husband and I and my kids have been like, they want to have adults over and have that busyness in the house. They're like, we're done with this. Let's get it going again. And my kids are like, we'll cook just so that we'll have people in the house. Let's get it going again.
Yeah. I love that concept, that thought of like quality versus quantity, and how that's changed, as we've gotten older. And when you had that group of 6, that was like your chosen family.
Yeah.
But then everybody starts following their life paths, right? So like Carole was saying, in terms of priority, everybody's got it's a different level of priority. Which makes sense. How about you, Trilby? Did you have a similar experience, or what was it like for you?
As a kid, we moved around a lot. So I was always the girl who would start a new school like midterm, mid-year. So, but I was very fortunate. I didn't even really think about it at the time. It was just, I would always make friends. I'm more a one-on-one person, and very much later, once I'd left home, I mean, my friends, I call them family. They were the family that,
I love that.
Family. And and I think the big change for me was when I moved to New Zealand, which was 18 years ago now, and that was very different. I still have two friends who have known me for like 30 years and we still talk regularly. And I think having that person who's kind of the thread through your life is amazing because you can just truly be yourself. And I think for me, that's what friendship is, that kind of unconditional love in a way, is with someone who's not, conditioned to be in your life. They're there because they really want to be. And then it was interesting, I think in New Zealand was when I really started to notice, because kind of the circle of support that I thought would be here very, very quickly disintegrated and I was on my own. So, and I think it's cultural as well. So New Zealand, what I've found is they're very cliquey. Like a lot of people know people from their childhood. And coming from Geneva, where everybody's so cosmopolitan and very social, and there's a different level of etiquette. You don't become friends with everyone. But I found people are interested in people. They like to have discussions, where you come from, all that. And then coming to New Zealand, where that didn't happen so much,
Oh.
and yet they're very close knit. There's a sense of community in New Zealand that I enjoy because I really haven't experienced elsewhere. I would say they really do care, but it's very difficult. Like a lot of the social skills that work for me in other countries they don't work here because people have their friendships. And what surprised me is they're not open to other friendships. And so that was like, wow. So I landed up making friends usually with people like myself, foreigners, people who've moved here again. And then I would say since the pandemic, I think really it caused a lot of rifts in very solid relationships. People just started to fall away. And at the moment, other than my long distance friends who I call, I don't really have anyone here. So, but that it doesn't really bother me. I've kind of always just traveled on my own anyway. But one thing I have noticed is when I travel to other countries, I'm very chatty now because in New Zealand, people just talk to each other. I know it sounds contradictory, but you kind of chat with the cashier, so there's this ease. And when I go back like to Europe, like people look at me like, what does she want? So it's really interesting observing those different social accepted ways of meeting people. And it's also, I suppose, as my values have changed, life circumstances, as you mentioned, Tori, there's people who come and go. Sometimes you can rekindle that, but a lot of times people move on. And I think we've all been in a place where we kind of expected or we thought that person would be there for us and they just weren't,
Right.
And I think it's important to try and see it from their side as well. I also found for me personally, like I know a lot of people think texting is communicating. For me, it's not. Like I had cases where I had friends who would be texting me every day, like, how are you? How are you? And it was a one-sided conversation. When the time came to actually meet and go and have a lunch or something, they would always cancel. And I kind of thought, what is this shit? So it's that too. And I think, I know for myself, for a long time, as I said, that people, oh yeah, but you're going to be on your own. You're going to be on your own. You're going to be on your own. And this was my motivation. And then I found I was feeling alone anyway. So I just thought, well, stuff it. It's not that I don't believe in those old friendships anymore. I think I meet people on a very different level. And it's very interesting because I actually have conversations with people that I wouldn't normally, because I would be looking for this in a friend. And now I'm just really open. And I have the most amazing conversations with people, and I do think there's a difference for me personally between acquaintances and friendships, So I think the criteria that makes the difference, I don't know if it's longevity. I'm not sure because, sometimes you can be friends with someone for 20 years and then all of a sudden they just drop away and life gets busy. And I think this is the time we're working in. Priorities is absolutely like, what are your values? For me at the moment, I actually just enjoy kind of like a butterfly flitting from flower to flower and just having that conversation there, conversation there. And my work too. I work a lot with people on a really deep level. And in a way, this kind of satisfies me. It makes me feel fulfilled. I think it's like Carole said, making that effort in the sense, just being open and speaking and just saying hi.
I just wanted to touch on a couple of things that were said. Is there seems to be a running theme of, friendships come and go and some stick and all that. And I've become a true believer. Last year, I went through what I call a friends cleanse. And it was people that, like, we were friends, we were hanging out, but I wasn't necessarily enjoying it. We were just doing it because that's what we do. That's what we've done. Or I'm always the one that, like, makes the plans and initiates. And I got tired of that. And so I just sat back. See, well, who else is going to? And you know what? I lost some people in my life. And you know what? That's okay. That's okay. But I'm a true believer in people are in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I really find peace in that with friendship. And I have a friend here that we're really not in touch now anymore. And we used to be weekly. But she needs a whole big group of friends. That's what she does. I like a smaller group of really close. As you said, quality versus quantity.
Mhm.
So neither one is right or wrong. It's just what we need.
Right. Yeah.
And being nomadic or living in another country than you're from, or maybe even another state, who knows? But to meet people, what I've found, like I belong to a Facebook group. They're all over. It's called GGI, which is Girls Gone International. I
Love it.
belong to the Budapest chapter. And I was in Athens for a few months a couple of years ago. And so I hit on GGI Athens. And we went to a rage room where you throw stuff against the wall. And we had coffee and things like that. And also we have Women of Budapest. But the groups that you meet online, it can be great. Yeah, there's no, like Women of Budapest and in GGI, it's not necessarily foreigners. There's Hungarians in them. It's not, the age ranges can vary. So some will be on there, all right, we've got a clubbing date, the pub crawl. But then there's a book club, all different things. And like the last week, I had two friends that kind of live in multiple countries. They split their time over a while, and they're two men. And when they're in Budapest, we play pool, and none of us are very good, and we really differ on what some of the rules are. But we have fun. We have a beer, we play pool, and it seems like a guy thing a bit. And they left now to go to their other places. I was like, I kind of miss the pool game. And so I put it out there on GGI and said, hey, this is my situation. Does anyone want to come? Like, because I was afraid to say it because I thought, well, it's a guy thing. And a bunch of women responded. And what I have learned is you don't try to work around everybody else's schedule. You say, this is when it's happening. Hope you can make it.
Right.
And sure enough, I did. And there were 5 of us, all different ages, from 20s to 60s.
Yeah.
And there were 2 Ukrainians, a Hungarian, a Hong Konger, and me, an American. And we had a good time playing pool for 2 hours and then went to the Irish pub for a beer afterwards.
That's awesome.
I think it's recognizing that, guess what? Other women feel this way too. They want to meet someone too. And maybe you have to be the initiator sometimes. And same thing. Last night I got together with an author. She's American and she's local to here. I mean, she lives here. And I met her at a feminist book club. There's a feminist library here that they have feminist stuff and LGBTQ and all that. It's awesome. And she was doing a talk there. And then I met her on the weekend at the literary festival. And we realized we had a lot in common. So she was doing a residency in another country and then came back and she's like, I'm back now. Can we get together? And so we got together last night just for a glass of wine.
Mm-hmm.
And it was wonderful. And we talked about making friendships. And where I went, I seemed to go through the route of joining these Facebook groups and doing that. Sometimes, like her, I met in an event. She's on the Facebook groups, but she's never been to an event. But I said, how did you make your friends here then? And she said, she's like, I guess I'm just lucky. You know what? I talk to people. I'd go to the bar alone and just talk to people and meet them and whatever, go to an event and meet people, but not through these groups or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's just all kinds of opportunities to do that.
I hear some common themes. I mean, obviously, friendships have changed through our seasons as we've been moving into midlife, because we have varying degrees of bandwidth and energy and time to prioritize it, right? So that's one of the reasons. And then, like a couple of you have already said, like what you're looking for in a friendship has changed compared to decades ago. I mean, I remember in my late 20s, early 30s maybe it started in mid 20s, was when my friends started to walk a different life path than I was. They started getting married and having kids, and I was still on the single woman track. And I found that it did separate us, particularly when they started having children, understandably, because all of a sudden, they just don't have the time and attention. But now, a couple decades later, all of a sudden, all these empty nesters are looking around going, wait, where are all my friends?
Yeah.
And so I think our situations and our circumstances start to change. I'm curious what you're looking for, if you're looking for more friendship at this season of your life, what are you looking for in a friendship right now as a midlifer?
I think I was listening to Carole about finding those friendships over social media, which I have taught my teenagers, to be wary of social media. And I am finding some of my deepest relationships right now, I'm finding on social media. And she's like, so Mom, why are you talking to these people online? How do you know you can trust them? Like, so I don't know. Let me think about that. But, and I haven't come up with a good answer, but over the last almost 10 years now as an author, I've developed relationships with other authors. So as I've moved from author into editor into various roles. And my health journey has paralleled that journey. And I've been in the hospital. I've had my daughter in the hospital. We've had just health battles. And the people that I've met online have been the ones who have come out of the woodwork. How are you doing? What's going on? How can I help? I'm like, you live in Europe. Not sure, but they're the ones who are there every day, talking to me, messaging, supporting me, being there for me as a moral support. There was a stretch of time where I lost mobility in my legs and I had to relearn how to walk. And that was one of the most challenging things I've ever had to do. And most people call it my in real life friends, like who were perfectly capable of coming to the hospital and being like, hi, how are you? That was an expectation. Just come say hi. You don't have to bring me flowers or food or I don't know what. I don't know what you're supposed to do. And I think that was a problem. No one knew what to do. Right. I couldn't walk. And everyone disappeared. And I mean, disappeared. No one called, not even like my family. No one called, no one texted, disappeared. And really my family is who needed something because I disappeared from the house. Everyone was running around going, what do we do? There's no groceries. There's no, how do we function? There's no mom. And it was just like ants scattering. But my author friends were like linking arms. How do we support you? And they helped me get a magazine issue out while I was in the hospital. So
Sorry for your experience.
thank you, Carole. I
And
appreciate that.
yeah, because it is a time when you need support, and unfortunately, it's a time when you realize who your friends are and what level of friendship it is, and who you can depend on.
Yeah.
And I will say I had both hips replaced at the beginning of last year.
Oh,
And
Carole, I'm sorry.
no. So I had them done in Budapest, and I don't have any family here. And you do see who's going to be there. And my friend brought me to the hospital. She has a car, and she joked with me while we waited the many hours for the surgery to take place. It was very weird. And then she stayed until I was out in recovery, and texted my sister in the U.S. and said she's fine. And then she picked me up 2 days later and wheeled me out, because they don't do that for you. And then she drove me home and stayed. I had hired somebody to stay with me for a few nights, just for the night. But she and another friend, they helped me shower. I was fully naked, and they helped me because I had to climb over a bathtub thing. They changed my feet. They took my compression socks off and washed them and put them back on. My two other friends that I play pool with, they came over and brought pastries and made coffee. And boy, did I can't stop thanking them.
Can I have your friends?
So much to me. It meant so much to me. But there were others that were not in touch.
I was going to say, all I want is someone who says, hey, this stinks. Can we just talk about it? Just, can I be there with you? But yeah, when you can't walk, you can't do anything. And all those things you realize how much you can't do, and you need people.
This is a common thing that I've been hearing from women about not getting from a friend, not receiving from the friendship as much as they felt that they were giving. And it makes me wonder too, because I was really was sort of like thinking on that. And because I feel like I've probably been in both situations. I've probably been in a situation where I let somebody down, as well. And so I was trying to think about that. And I think sometimes people don't know how to show up. Like they're not sure.
Yeah.
Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
What do I say? Is it horrible if I show up empty-handed? Because if I don't show up empty-handed, what am I supposed to bring? Like, what does that support look like? So
yeah.
I wish we had more conversations around that, about like what we need, from each other.
I have learned to recognize, because I tend to take things personally.
Mm-hmm.
So I have learned to recognize that, you know what, other people have a lot of stuff going on in their life too. And we're, here and there, I've had a situation where I've been upset. Like, I didn't say anything, but I was like upset with somebody because they didn't show up. And then a month later, I heard what they were going through.
Right.
I was like, okay. That was selfish thinking of me. So I do know that also.
Well, it's understandable, but it can be solved with communication, right? So
that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah. But another way I've met people while traveling is I traveled around the world, and I volunteered in each location I went to. And it wasn't, one of those volunteerism things. I don't do that. But when I would show up and try to find something, and I found all different opportunities. And here in Budapest, my first time, and actually some time after that, I joined a group that we served the homeless and the hungry in a park every weekend. But I mean,
Wonderful.
I've taught English to refugees. I was on a film crew with 3 drag queens to promote Limerick Gay Pride Week. But what I found, especially like when I was in Budapest and when I was in Kuala Lumpur, is I met people through that. And we had common interests. You know, I knew they were pretty good people. They were volunteering.
Yeah.
And now I have
It's
Ukrainian
amazing.
friends. And so through volunteering, it's a great way to meet friends of all kinds, but women, female friendships, because you already have something in common.
Do you identify yourself as an extrovert, Carole?
I identify myself as an introverted extrovert.
Okay. How about you, Tori?
I used to be an extrovert and I had adjusted that. And I have often said that I was an extroverted introvert. And
Yeah.
I think that's funny to hear somebody else say that as well.
Yeah. How about you, Trilby?
I'm an ambivert.
Yeah.
That's what my daughter says that.
Yeah, I have periods where I like to socialize and then I withdraw completely. I do enjoy socializing, but I definitely need my time for introspection, integration.
Yep. So then we're all similar in that way, because I also consider myself an extroverted introvert. And I think it's kind of like a spectrum. We kind of fluctuate depending on our circumstances and what's going on. But one of the things that I hear from women is, yeah, they'll go out and do these things, or they'll go to an event, or they'll go to the book club, or they'll chat with the people that they see on a daily basis, like Trilby does. Where they get stuck is, how do you bridge that into a friendship? And Carole said earlier how it's a little like dating, and I do kind of think it kind of is. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. How do you go from meeting somebody, whether it's online or in person at an event, how do you sort of nurture that to even potentially become a friendship? What are your thoughts?
I think it's totally like dating. I think it's like, for me, I meet most people online, but even when you meet people in real life, it feels like online dating, because you'll have an interaction or multiple and you'll enjoy it. And then it's like, okay, do I propose that we do something together? Is it going to sound a little creepy? Is it too soon? What do I say? Should we do? Do I invite them over to the house? Wait, that's a little too personal. Do we have coffee? What are they going to like? It's like, I'm not 20. I don't want to go through. That's too much energy. I mean, this is, and do I sound creepy? I'm not creepy. Oh my goodness. And then
what
it's
do you
like,
do after you're
I'm
having
exhausted. Let's turn on Netflix and open the ice cream.
I have an example of this author that I went out with last night, and we talked about what are her favorite thermal baths, because we're in Budapest, and so it's all about the thermal baths. And I told her about my favorite brunch place, and she texted me today and said, I really enjoyed our conversation last night. So maybe in the next couple of weeks we could get together, maybe to go to a bath or for brunch, whatever. And so she did that move, but I'll do it too. But I said, yeah, definitely. And so if I enjoy a conversation, if we had a good time, I'll say, hey, really enjoyed our chat last night, really enjoyed playing pool, whatever. I did that with one of the Ukrainian women that joined us for pool. I'm like, it was really nice to meet you. I hope that we can get together.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually don't have any expectations at the moment. And I know a point I'd like to make is, I think a lot of friendships are killed because we expect our friend to be our therapist, okay? And for me, I think there's a distinction, and I think it strains and drains the relationship. And a lot of people have their own shit going on and they just can't cope, so they move away. It's all energetics, if there's a imbalance, and this is the nonverbal communication. So, I mean, it's not about not having that person to speak to. Like, I have a few people who I meet, and I always leave the conversation feeling uplifted and expansive. And for me, that's my criteria. And I'm sorry to say, but I'm not a free therapist anymore for anybody. You know, that's my vocation. And if you want to have this kind of conversation with me, and I think like any relationship, whether it's a friendship or other relationships, we're seeing this kind of, and it fits in with people pleasing, and people feel this, and sometimes this brings us together. You see this in times of emergency where people come together because there's stuff to do. You've got to make sure people are safe. You've got to care for the people. That's kind of the basic. And then afterwards comes the what I call the airy fairy stuff. So yeah, but I think for me at the moment, I mean, I would love companionship. That's kind of what I look, somebody who's easygoing. It makes me laugh because people say, "Oh, I'm easygoing," and then they have this list of things, and I'm like, "Yeah, you're easygoing as long as it's going your way." So I think, like anything, be discerning, and like Tori said, it's very different when you meet someone for a cup of coffee and you live with them. I lost many friendships, good friendships, because we went on holiday together, and that was horrific. It was like, no, and it broke the friendship open. So for me,
I've
at the
done that.
moment, I'm very happy with the casual. And I'm not saying we don't touch on important stuff, but I know there were friends in my life who were very helpful, because when they said to me, I think you need to go and see a therapist, and that's the kind of friend I want, because you can drain and destroy relationships. So yeah, I'm just really happy, but I am more fulfilled in myself. And I think that makes all the difference. I actually don't need anything from anybody. I enjoy going and meeting people. Like I said, the ambivert in me, I love going out, meeting, but I don't need it anymore. And I think that's a big difference. And I think the friends I have reflect that. So there's an enjoyment when we come together. People come and go. Sometimes they come back. I think timing is a big thing. If you're struggling with something yourself, I always say, like in the airlines, put your own oxygen mask on first. If you have nothing to give, you have nothing to give. And I think it's important to own that. But I think, like you said, Amy, very important, communicate it. I think communication is lacking very much. Or I know, being very independent too, the hardest thing for me was to ask for help. And I found that it's not specifically going to someone and saying, or it could be. I've had cases where people finding themselves homeless, and they actually asked the people they knew, and they all said no, no, no. And it was like, wow. And I've had that myself, and I was just like, wow. And then a stranger or someone who was in my, larger, who I never ever thought, just said very casually, "Oh, you can come stay with me." And I'm like, wow, So is that a friendship? I don't know. I think we've put a lot of burden on friendships. And I think this is what we're going through now, is this reassessment of what is a friendship.
I think we've just sort of proved even more how much like dating it all is. It really does come down. I mean, there's compatibility and how you want to communicate. I mean, you guys would hate me because I'm a huge texter, and I'm not a big fan of talking on the phone because I'm talking,
all day,
this way all the time. So I'm not a big phone call. So and that has been an issue with some of my friendships because of how communication's happening. So there's compatibility. And then the other thing, when you guys were talking about how you reached out or made that plans for coffee or whatever, what struck me as you guys were talking about that was, well, then no wonder Gen X women are really uncomfortable with that, because as young adults in our early dating seasons, that wasn't our role. Like, we weren't the one necessarily. I mean, the concept of women asking men out was kind of new-ish.
Later. Yeah.
It wasn't really prevalent. So we don't necessarily have a lot of practice in initiating, and we do take it personally, when the rejection, because the rejection is inevitable. But what I find that in friendships, the rejection looks, I feel like it looks different because nobody really, we're not really mean to each other or, reject in that kind of way.
No
We
one
more
says,
likely,
I don't want to go out with you.
no, we more likely just like either keep postponing. Oh, sure, I'd love, like they keep kicking the
Maybe
can
next
down the
month.
road, and and that ends up being rejection. It's not necessarily as cut and dry. So it's interesting, all the things that we're saying that's like reminding me of dating. But with dating, I've given up dating. I've had no interest.
I would never go through that again. Just,
Yeah. Well, I'd like to say never, but I don't know. I don't know because I don't know if I do want to have a companion or a partner at some point. At this point, I don't. But it's just interesting, all the similar. And I loved Trilby. I loved what you said about that your bar is sort of how you feel at the end of that
yeah.
interaction and feeling like invigorated or feeling up in terms of I had somebody put it as, are they a faucet or a drain when you're
Yeah.
interacting?
That's great.
Are they a faucet or are they a drain? And I think that's spot on as well.
Yeah, and you can still discuss your problems without draining,
Yeah.
a person. And that's the kind of conversations I want to have, and and
Right.
I think it
Good.
is in this energy, like Carole said, when you have a common cause, I think it takes the pressure off people and then the relationships are allowed to blossom naturally.
Right. But you're so
Yeah.
right when
And
you were talking about like the oxygen mask and where you are
yeah,
yourself, and then you talked about the
yeah,
energy and who you're attracting. And, I think
yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. I wish there were more words more words for friendship, because I find that I have lots of different kinds of friendships, right? And
Yeah.
Friendship is
like whether it's a casual friendship or it's, activity based or shared interest based or whatever, and then your core group of closer friends. So there's lots of different types of friendship. So I'd love to wrap our conversation. You guys have had so many amazing thoughts and insights and stories to share. I want to thank you for that. I'd love to hear any thoughts that you have for midlife or Gen X women who are feeling like they're not satisfied with their state of friendship in their life, whatever that might be, and they may feel that they're not good at it. Do you have any thoughts to share with them?
if you want more, you have to make the effort, even when you don't feel like it, because when you do feel like it, guess what? It can be too late, you don't have anyone there. I think that social media can be helpful with that, as long as it's a local group that you intend to really have in person stuff. But I also highly recommend a friends cleanse. Really feels like it took a little bit of weight off of me, in that I'm not nurturing friendships that are really, they're no longer friendships. We're just too nice or too whatever to just call it off. So just like sort of hibernating and being good with being your own friend for a little bit and figuring out, just like in a man, what do you want in a man? What do you want in your friends, in your friend circle? What do you need here or there?
I'd agree with Carole on most of that. And I would start with an assessment on yourself, because we've changed. Life has taken a severe shift once you hit 45, 50. Life is kind of turned on its head. And reevaluate yourself. What do you need? Who are you? And then what do you need in a friend? And what is that friendship going to look like? Because it's probably different people. What are your core interests now? They've probably changed. How do you want to interact with those people? Is it over your new interests? And find those people over those new interests. And how can you interact there? And that's your new friendships might look very different than your current interests. They might be just getting together over, painting and wine because that's your new thing. Or maybe you're wanting to train for a marathon because, it's time to get healthy. Whatever your new thing is, try to find people who also want to do that. And you will connect over that. And the friendship will follow and the depths will follow, because our lives are different. And it's taken me a while to accept that. Once you do, then the friendships will come and they'll deepen slowly. Because when we were 20, they weren't automatic. It took time. We just didn't realize it because we were just going with the flow and taking life as it came.
Yeah.
And now we know things take work.
Great advice. Thank you.
We have to work at it.
Trilby, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we are in a different season of our life. And I think it's not so much asking for help, but I think don't be afraid to voice, that I'm finding it hard to make friends, because there's usually, as we found, there's a lot of other women who feel the same. And I think a lot of us thought, what's wrong with me? I can't make friends. And it's not that we can't make friends. I do think it's a different season. The game has changed. And like we've all said, the way we make friends is perhaps different. We can't rely so much on those social structures. And I know for me, I do what I enjoy and I decide what I want to do. Like when I travel, I've noticed like I always book a tour to go and see the area, and there's always people on the bus or whatever. And sometimes we've struck up friendships and, afterwards we've met up for dinner or whatever. But I think it's being happy in yourself and stepping out of that, what interests me, and just being open. People's stories are fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I think as women, whole life we've been told you have to think of other people. And
Right.
I think that's changing. So what is it that I want from a friendship? What are the criteria, so, and then just go on about your life and just to be a bit more spontaneous. Like me, I have held back before, and now sometimes it's just, I kind of say, well, let's go have a coffee, sometimes it's accepted or not. So I don't think there's a blueprint for friendships at the moment, if there ever was. So yeah, just have fun, experiments. If you've got a support system around you that's there, that's wonderful. But there are a lot of people out there, also single, solo women, who don't have families. And I think this is also going to create a new kind of clan, if I can say, because our lifestyles are different,
Thank you. Well, what I can say is it's a good thing there's no blueprint for friendships, because we'd be breaking it anyway.
Absolutely.
So thank you all for joining me today. It's been wonderful chatting with you, and just I love hearing your experiences and your thoughts. So thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of the Blueprint Breakers podcast, Redefining Friendship in Midlife. And a very special thank you to my roundtable guests, Tori, Trilby, and Carole. And thank you to you, the listener, for listening and sharing this episode with your friends. If you haven't done it yet, remember to follow or subscribe, and please give us a 5-star rating on whichever podcast platform you are using. Have a great week. Keep on breaking those blueprints and rewriting your own.